That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
My name is Skip Cummins, my wife Roxanne. We live over in Cope, but we have a place right off of Wire Road, probably about 5 miles up the river from the tree houses. And just like the gentleman here was saying, every day between 11:30 and 1 o'clock, you can just about bet somebody's going to come in front of our place in a canoe or in a kayak, and they're visiting Edisto River. And you know, I don't really know anybody here, but I think we all have one thing in common. And for whatever reason, whatever the reason is, we enjoy Edisto River. We enjoy the water, might be sitting and watching the tubers go by or the kayaks, or I enjoy fishing. And I know there are people that I love to fish, and Roxanne does too. But some of the concerns that we have and what we see at our place on the river, there's just a lot of big engines, fast engines up and down that part of the river. We live right down from us is a pretty good bend in the river. And matter of fact, Roxanne named our place Sturgeon Bend. And we sat on our place, you can sit on our porch, and when the sturgeon are running, you know, they have a spring run and they have a fall run. And usually the fall run is when you're going to see them in the river up this way more. That's what we found out. But you can sit on our porch and you can hear them splashing. It sounds like a log hitting the water. And occasionally you get to see one come out the water. And that's amazing too. It looks like a torpedo being shot out of a submarine. But so on that bend, it's pretty sharp. And there have been a number of times that we've known kayaks and canoes come in front of our place, and you can hear a boat coming up the river. And we're just sitting kind of bracing, waiting for something to happen. And that's one concern. And unfortunately, sometimes things aren't addressed until there's something major happens. Until you have a major accident or somebody really gets hurt. You know, everything's okay, we're rocking along all right until somebody really gets hurt. And you know, nobody here wants to see anybody get injured. We want to see everybody have a good time. You know, I grew up on Combahee River. Grew up in Colleton County, down a little town of Ruffin. And so I've always enjoyed the river. And things are different now. Y'all know that. Things are different now than they were back then. Things have changed in the last 5 years. I agree with what Earl said. I mean, just more and more people are wanting to get outside and enjoy what I think maybe a lot of us grew up enjoying, but taken for granted as well. You know, so one of our concerns, I think, would be just the fast traffic, the big engines that we see in the river.
Jet skis.
Jet skis, wide open jet skis. And that's what we see on top of the water. I know this past summer we had a lot of boat traffic one particular Saturday, and I don't know how many boats went down in front of us, but the same amount of boats, they turned around and went back up in front of us. And the next morning, we spent the night at the river. The next morning, there were huge piles of foam floating down the river. And I mean, it's common to see some little piles of foam, and I guess that's the Lord's way of cleaning the river on a daily basis. But I'm telling, these piles of foam, it was amazing as what we saw. And I walked down our boat ramp, and we put in a boat ramp, and we did it with a permit. We went through the Corps of Engineers, and I can tell you all about the Atlantic sturgeon if you want to hear about it.
Yeah.
But not only did we see all this dirty foam that was on the river, it had to be from the boat traffic, but it was piles of oil. I guess it was oil, and I don't think anybody poured the fish grease in the water, but it was oil, and I guess from the boat motors. So we can see that floating across the top of the water. That's evident. But my question is, and I don't have a solution, this is just an observation, and just thinking, what's going on under the water? What's happening to the fish beds when the fish are on bed and all this traffic's up and down the river? Now, I love to fish, and I'm probably not the best fisherman in the world. I know there's one fella here, he probably outfish everybody, and I ain't gonna call his name. Maybe two people here then. I got two fellas pointing at each other. But our concern and my thought is, you know, with all that turbulence under the water, it can't be healthy for the river. It can't be healthy for the fish population. Now, I called the DNR biologist. I think his name is Levi. Hold on, I had it right here. Levi Kazka. And I asked him these questions, and he said that there was no data to support anything that it damaged or any of the fish beds. And I asked him, had there been any studies? He said, no, there hadn't been any studies. And my reply was, maybe it's a good time for a study. So that was the only phone call I made to DNR biologist. So that's some of our concerns. We have an investment on the river, just like you guys do. We enjoy the river. You know, we want to take care of the river. And that's what we try to do, be a good steward of what the Lord has blessed us with. And yeah, so that's our concerns. And our address is 5653 Wire Road. If you ever see the gate open, it's a black steel gate with a cutout of a sturgeon on it. Y'all come on in, and love for you to visit.
Thank you, Mr. Cummins.
All right, thanks.
Go ahead and lead out with your name for me.
Jim Judy. I live on the Edistow River. It's about 3 miles before I-95. To answer your question about the foam on the water, I always been told, and I can see it, is when the river is rising, that's when you get your foam. And then the biologist is studying the fish on the Edistow River, because on my dock for probably longer than that, 6 years or more, out of Bamberg, they got a monitoring device that monitors the sturgeons, and the shad comes up, and every so often they come and get the readings off of it. So
and that's great. And I think I was referring to the red breast, the bass, the jackfish.
Yeah.
We won't even talk about the flatheads, but you know, they're there. But those are the fish I was referring to. Yeah, the Atlantic sturgeon and short-nosed sturgeon, they're an endangered species. And oh gosh, Bill, what is Bill's name? He's the he goes up and down for DNR. I've talked with him. I can look his name up. But yeah, that's great that they're taking a count basically of the shad and the sturgeon from your place. And that's awesome that you offer your place for them to do that. That's great.
For years. Yeah, I'll come back in a little bit.
Okay. Mr. Reeves, do you want to?
My name's Huey Reeves, and I've got a couple places on the river, and my biggest concerns is, like Skip made a concern about all the big boats and stuff with no consideration. This past year, had 2 boats in a narrow section of the river come by me and a friend of mine liked to turn my boat over, took on water. A couple of weeks before that, the boat liked to knock my dog out the boat because they're so close. And there's laws and stuff about the Ogeechee River down in Georgia about no motors over a 9.9 because of environmental. And years ago, I can remember that there was a Chris something. He was a biologist. He come up the river, and there was a big thunderstorm, and he pulled up under our cook shed and had lunch with us, and they were doing a study of the red breast, but that was over 30 years ago, and I haven't seen that happen since. And I mean, they need to do something, because it says that they can't break a wake within 50 foot of a dock. Well, there's a section right where one of my houses are that the river isn't 50 foot wide when it's low. So I mean, that's a perfect place if they want to set up. And the DNR needs help. I mean, Tanner don't have but him and Officer Richardson. And he got a lot of territory. And he got a lot of people that's causing him a lot of grief. But my biggest issue is the boating situation. I take my boat out on a Friday and don't put it back in until Sunday afternoon late so I can fish Monday. Because you just can't you can't get in the river. And somebody's gonna get hurt. Somebody's gonna end up getting hurt or killed. And then who's it gonna fall on? And that's about my biggest concern.
Huey, what was the size limit on those motors in that river?
A 9.9 from a certain area. No motor access, a 9.9 operated in the Ogeechee River upstream of the state highway, and no motor in excess of a 25 can be operated from that state highway down to Lake Juliet.
Yeah. And what do they say about within 100 feet?
Okay, 100 feet is personal watercraft. Jet ski, in parentheses, cannot be operated in excess of 5 miles an hour within 100 feet of a motored or anchored vessel. In other words, if you're motoring now in Dorchester County or the Edisto River, you don't have to slow down. You can keep right on going, make the biggest wake you want to make. And the anchored vessel, shore, dock, pier, wharf, piling, bridge, or person in the water. But like one of the game wardens said, how you can prove where 100 foot is? Well, I can prove where 100 foot is in my area because the river's not 100 foot wide there. And they come by that 35 mile an hour sliding around a curve, and I got a no wake zone sign, and I holler, and all I see is a finger flying up in there. And they keep on going. But these guys need help. That's about all I got to add to it.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Reeves.
going to give you a little history. You're talking about times that's changed and everything. The game warden behind me didn't listen in after the fact. I was 19 years old before I found out you wasn't supposed to hunt rabbits from a car hood at night. So those times has changed big time. And you go back, I'm going back to my membership with the Friends of the Edisto. I was at the Chestnut Grill, and I belong with the Friends of the Edisto. I love the Edisto. I got quite a bit of property on the Edisto, and anybody abuse it, that bothers me. If I see somebody throwing trash out, I'm after them. But it's common courtesy. But going back to the Friends of the Edisto, I was belonging to the Friends of the Edisto until I was at that meeting at Chestnut Grill. And I heard them say, I don't fit, I got back problems. I do not fit in a canoe. I'm a boat man. And I heard them say, we're gonna cut a hole in the river where the trees is going across, but we're only gonna do it wide enough for the canoes because we don't want to accommodate the boat operators. That was the end of my membership with the Friends of the Edisto, and that was in the early 2000s.
Okay. I hear you.
So then there's a lot to be learned from boaters and canoers. I always tell canoers, when I'm trying to pass you, start back paddling. Don't keep paddling forward because I'm not going to follow you down the river 2 miles to get around you. That's one thing that the canoe people that's in the business need to teach these canoers. When a boat's trying to get around you, back paddle, give them common courtesy. They need to give you common courtesy. But the ones that won't do it, you can't fix stupid. And if everybody got to work together, the law enforcement can't do it. But how are you going to educate the people to do what's right? And, you know, I have trouble with boaters. I have trouble with canoers. I have canoers go on my property and stuff. I don't know whether these were canoes or not. Went on my boat ramp, did a number 2, left the paper and everything. I don't know who it was. I had somebody, I got a tree house down the river, never rented out or nothing. I went down there the other week and seen where some of my stuff was outside. I said, dang, somebody left the stove here and everything. No, they broke into my tree house, got my cooking stuff out, left it down below, left the garbage and everything. That's not the first time. But who is it? Is it the boats or the canoe? I'm not blaming. There's enough blame to go to everyone. But it's the job to educate, to try to educate the canoers and the boaters.